Tony, can you check with Rich to see if we're ready to go? Okay, good. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, and welcome to the September 13th JEDO board meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Here.
Council members Emerson.
Here.
Nager.
Here.
Commissioners Rippon.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
And Mays.
Here.
Non-voting members, we have Councilmember Hiller.
Here.
Ortiz. Valdivia Acala. Kale. Duncan. And Hofer. So we have 7 present. Councilmember Hiller present, so we have 8 total.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda item is action item number 3. I have been asked by Mr. Henry McClure to add an item to tonight's agenda relative to the Travelers Inn on Topeka Boulevard. JEDO's operating rules allow additions to the agenda by any voting member subject to the approval of at least 4 voting members. As such, I move to add this item as an action item 3D. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Dobler. If you call the roll, please.
All right. Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson.
Yes.
Nager.
Yes.
Commissioners Rippon.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
And Mays.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Motion is carried, so that item will be moved to the end of the agenda at 3D. Next item we have are the meeting minutes. Madam Clerk?
A, our approval of the May 10, 2023 JEDO board meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a motion from the board?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. Move to approve by Commissioner Mays. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. To call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Yes.
Council members Emerson.
Yes.
Nager.
Yes.
Commissioners Rippon.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
And Mays.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Move to action item 3B. If the clerk will read.
B is approval of the 2022 JEDO audit report.
Okay. We have Rochelle, or who is it that's going to be presenting? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stacy Hammond, a partner at BT & Co. PA, and I am the partner on JEDO's financial statement audit. I believe all of you have received 2 documents from us. One of those is a copy of the audited financial statements, and another is a report addressed to the Board of Directors. That report to the Board of Directors puts into writing items that our audit standards require us to present about the annual financial statement audit, and it also forms the basis of my presentation this evening. So if you'd like to open that up to page 1 and follow along, the first thing that I need to visit with you about is our responsibilities in performing the organization's audit. We did perform JEDO's audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Those standards require us to perform procedures in order to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. The procedures that we performed included examining, on a test basis, evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. We also reviewed the accounting principles used by JEDO, as well as any significant estimates made by management, and evaluated the overall financial statement presentation. The most important thing that I'll be telling you this evening is that as a result of performing those procedures, we did determine that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Therefore, we issued what we call an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best kind of opinion that the organization can receive. Moving on to the accounting policies and practices section in the report to the board. Here we would let you know about anything that we might have identified in the audit related to changes in existing accounting policies, newly adopted accounting policies, significant or unusual transactions, or significant accounting estimates. There's nothing in any of those areas that we're required to report this year. There is a section in the report, I think it's on page 2, titled Audit Adjustments, and I don't generally point out a section where we just say that there aren't any audit adjustments, but I think it's important to point that out because the fact that we did not make any audit adjusting entries as a part of our audit process shows the excellent accounting that was in place and how prepared the management of JEDO was for our financial statement audit. In the final sections of the report to the board titled Observations about the audit process, we would inform you about any concerns or issues that we might have run across during the audit, if we'd had any significant disagreements with management, consultations, or significant issues or difficulties. I'm pleased to report that there's nothing in any of these areas. Management was extremely cooperative throughout the entire audit process, as well as transparent in answering our numerous questions. The final item that I'd like to bring to your attention is that after, I think, page 2 in the report, you're going to see a letter on the county's letterhead with a bunch of numbered items on it addressed to us, and we call that management's representation letter. That letter puts into writing, everything that management of JEDO represented to us throughout the course of the audit. It's the final step in the audit process, and once that letter's signed and returned to us, it's the signal that the audit's ready to be completed. We like to include that in the packet so that you can see what was represented to us, and we also think it helps you to fulfill your fiduciary responsibilities in being able to read through that. With that, before I turn it over to questions, I would very much like to thank Betty Greiner and Rochelle Matthews. We are new auditors in here this year doing JEDO's audit, and therefore we had many questions as we went through the initial audit planning process, and we really appreciate all the assistance that was provided in making it a smooth audit process. With that, I'd open it up to any questions that any of you might have.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, I would thank you very much for a very, very complete audit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Okay. Motion to approve is from Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Sorry,
Second from
I didn't have my microphone on. So moved.
Second from Commissioner Cook. If you call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dobler,
Yes.
Council members Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Commissioners Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
and Mays.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Move on to action item 3C, if the clerk will read.
C is approval of an amendment number 1 to the incentive agreement between Go Topeka and POLO Custom Products in the amount of $140,000.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
So we have Project J2, which is an amendment for POLO Custom Products contract that was previously approved in 2021. During the annual verification, we discovered that there was a discrepancy in the base employment. Inadvertently, all of their sites and all of their states were listed. So during that verification process, we realized that the actual number was 23, so we just want to update that in the original contract so that we can make sure and account for their net new jobs moving forward. Additionally, through that verification process, they were incentivized to train 60 new individuals, and they have already surpassed that. Speaking with them, they plan to train another 140, so we would like to incentivize that tonight. So we request a motion to approve the amendment to the original contract for those 2 items. I'm happy to answer any questions. Alan Frost is also here representing the company if you have any questions for him.
Okay. We've heard the presentation and the request. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler. Second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Emerson. You'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dobler,
Yes.
Council members Emerson,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Commissioners Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
and Mays.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Motion's been carried, and we move on now to what is now 3D.
So 3D would be approval of a a proposal related to Travelers Inn located on Topeka Boulevard presented by Henry McClure.
Okay. Mr. McClure?
Good evening. Thank you so much. I want you to know how grateful I am to be able to have the opportunity to talk to y'all. I'd like to talk to you about it's germane to the issue is the Bring Back the Boulevard initiative, because that's been something that's been dear to Topeka and very, a lot of people have put a lot of energy. Due to the overwhelming interest in the ground after Mainline purchased the old Gordman's, the Arlen original, we were able to successfully buy out the ground lease, and that's really changed the world. If there's anything that where you have to adapt to the market is and be nimble is to the changes in deals. So I appreciate the chance. So the two deals that we've got at 32nd and Topeka Boulevard, they're steamrolling through. Everything's, we don't see a hitch in the get along, and it's smooth sailing at 32nd in Topeka. We made a new deal down at the old Pizza Hut, and we demoed the overground landscape, and we spit shined the interior so it shows better. And the next deal I made was with Devish Patel, and I hate to say it this way, but I've got two Devish Patels in my life, and they're not related. So I've got Devish Patel South at the Travelers, and I have Devish Patel North at the Country Club. So the Country Club is the hotel contiguous to Capitol Federal. And let me take a moment to talk about the Country Club and bring about how important this deal is. At 38th Street, and you have an amendment that's listed number 1 in all the attachments, but it basically kind of tees up the Travelers. So the energy that we've got going on at 38th Street and the Country Club, so we're in need of help from the city on city land at 38 and Topeka Boulevard, just on the east side between the two hotels that will be next on my list and the Country Club. There's some land that we can create a north-south, what am I looking for? A frontage road, which would eventually, if you go south, would go to the Travelers. So with what we've got going on at 38th Street, basically, if you go down to 28, we can enhance Topeka with the change positively affecting White Lakes, as well as everything that the Briggs people want to do on their property. So I'm massaging right now one contract that we moved from 32nd and Topeka, where Chick-fil-A and Whataburger are in process. I think everybody knows that by now. If you don't, you do now. So I've been able to move one guy clear down to Country Club. And so we're working with putting him on that deal, that land. As we bring back the boulevard, we need to focus on retail and retail development. As we look at Topeka from a mile high, we need to treat Topeka like a tourist town. We need to make Topeka so nice that the visitors want to stay longer and eventually move here. At South Topeka, the Travelers is like a billboard. After the new shiny KTA, it's like bam, it hits you. After my 44 years in real estate, it's taught me that most lack vision. And of the last 40 years in commercial real estate, we need to look at the world more like, we look at the world more of like what it can be, not for what it is today. but not everybody has that ability. So with that said, having the travelers removed from the face of the earth changes the whole complexion of the boulevard. Buying out the ground lease that Mason Dana K did in the 60s changed the deal 100% down on 32nd Street, and removing the travelers will have the same net effect to that ground. White Lakes is not a gold star for our refrigerator, but it did help me make the sale down to Mainline to buy the Gordmans. You know, John Parker is one of those guys that is, I think it's more important that he remained a friend, but he sure has turned out to be a very good client. From the Travelers to the Country Club, we can really bring back the boulevard. The ripple effect goes to Briggs and to the Parker family at White Lakes. Our plan is to demo the Country Club ASAP and moved to the Travelers just as fast as we can. So what I'm asking is the ask here tonight is to talk about demoing the Travelers. I've had, on the Country Club land, I've had 2 excavators look at grubbing the land, and I've gotten some preliminary numbers from Cook, Flat, and Strobel to move forward with an NOI, a notice of intent to grub the land and draw plans in order to get a permit for that. So I've sent you, one of your attachments is a letter of intent in
I'm going to ask for just a minute, Mr. McClure. Do we have those attachments?
Yes, they were forwarded to you in an email.
Okay.
I probably should have been a little more on my toes to hand them out. Short notice. So what I want to say in the letter of intent is that the owner is delighted to try to make a deal. You know, if we have to attach some strings to the request to get some demolition funds, we're open to it. Look, I'm a winner tonight for just having the opportunity to come down and talk to you guys and address you personally. You know, sometimes in America, we don't always all agree. And it's nice that you'll at least hear different points of view. So we're happy to close the Travelers the minute we get an okay from you guys, or at least an agreement to move forward under certain stipulations. As an operator today, there's a no vacancy sign, and they're not taking any other guests. And I got to take a minute right now to thank, with my whole heart, the boys in blue, because the Topeka Police Department has helped every step of the way, because today we still have our lodging license. And we need to have that lodging license to operate in the fashion that we are, because it's still a hotel. It's not a month-to-month place. It's not an apartment. It's not that situation. So we're delighted to make a deal or have a deal crafted to get the hotel closed as fast as possible, not operating, and then have it removed from the face of the earth. So I've submitted a couple of bids from different contractors. And one of the contractors is the guy that I've worked with to make ready the Gordmans, which had a lot of demo before we turned it over to Mainline. And another contractor that bid that is also tearing down the Wild Horse. We've applied for our demo permit, and we're planning on tearing that. I know I've convoluted a lot of deals together, but that's the nature of retail development. That's really basically how you change the complexion of the boulevard. So from all the nice things happening at 29th Street with the new IHOP, all the positive changes we've made at 32nd Street, and then what we've got going on at Travelers and 38th, it starts making White Lakes doable. It starts making the Briggs land more doable. But I'll tell you that the thorn in Topeka's side is at Travelers. And even, the owner has not wanted to operate it this way. He's been closing down units little by little. But, it also creates a financial burden on the operator. So we've taken the steps to minimize the risk to the community as far as some people are going off to jail that are overstaying. And we still have a few problem people. Look, there's a handful of people that live there that have jobs, and it's not the best place to stay, but they pay there's a few of them that pay their rent on time, and they've also agreed, hey, when you need the space back, we'll move. We understand. You got to move on. So what my request is basically trying to get you to look at this like a shovel-ready situation. If an industrial guy were coming to town, the whole thing is all about having shovel-ready land. Well, so the same thing, I'm trying to get you to look at it the same way of having the land shovel-ready. That's the best I got. I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Cook?
Mr. McClure, if I understand your presentation this evening, you are asking the JEDO body to entertain a request for the demolition cost of Travelers Inn, correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you have the authority of the owner to present that to us as a governing board?
Yes, I do. I have it in writing. I'll supply it to you.
And if I understood your documents correctly, the cost of the demolition of Travelers Inn was approximately $250,000.
No, that's wrong.
197.
We have one bid at about 217 and one a little less than that.
Okay. So
But no, I've got I wouldn't stand here if I didn't have the authority. Let's see if he's here. Divish, you here? He was gonna come.
okay. At 200.
Hey, he's a good dude, I'm telling you.
But Mr. McClure, $217,000 was the high bid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you are not asking this board to take any action as it relates to Country Club Motel.
Not tonight?
All right. And ultimately, I think that one issue or concern that I have as a voting member of JEDO is JEDO itself, we don't have operational funds. There's money that's allocated to the city of Topeka for projects that were approved by the taxpayers and the voters. There are projects that were approved to Shawnee County. There's money that went to the zoo. There's money that went to different entities, Stormont Vale Event Center, trails, et cetera. And then we have our $5 million that goes to our contractor, Go Topeka, for economic development. So if the board was to take action, it would be going to our economic development partner, Go Topeka, for this. But a question that I do have is, if this board was to go to our partner, Go Topeka, on this request, would your client accept a lien of the demolition cost So when the property is sold, that money would then be repaid back to go to Topeka.
I would have to take that to my client for approval. But I'd also like to say, as a taxpaying citizen, I view JEDO as the final say. You may have hired a contractor, and they might be the GC, the general contractor for economic development, but sometimes subcontractors can bring in deals, and we should have equal opportunity. We may not agree with your subcontract or your contractor the way they do business, or we just as citizens ought to have the opportunity to come forward. And I really hope this is the precursor to that. I love your Go Topeka people. Matt Pavarnak bought a house from me. I made dough.
Well, but
So-
Mr. McClure, the concern that I have is while the removal of Travelers Inn may help that property become more marketable and improve the boulevard, we could be opening a Pandora's box of all different kinds of properties that need to be demolished, and those needs may exceed what we are able to do for economic development. Whereas if there was a lien placed on the property, then that money would then be repaid back in to a fund for future demolition. So that's just a question that I would have, is whether or not your client would accept that provision.
Well, I'd have to take that for approval. And in fact, I even said in the letter of intent that any deal would have to be final subject to his approval. But to your addressing Pandora's box, maybe it's time to open that box. You know, the interlocal agreement clearly says that the funds are to be used for economic development, quality of life, and infrastructure. So I think that this project alone, let's talk about quality of life to the police department. Let's talk about the quality of life for people in that area and the leverage that this creates in the area to the whole Bring Back the Boulevard initiative is a little snowball rolling downhill. And your contractor has never accepted retail development as a qualifying, which I don't think they have the right to say, but if you put retail development up, you've got a double chance at sales tax. You've got the ability to grow sales tax in this community as well as property tax. And I don't know why we're not supporting the very thing that creates the funds to have economic development.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. Henry, I appreciate everything you're doing on the boulevard and elsewhere. Simple fact is, we meet 4 times a year. We hire a contractor to take care of economic development. I, for one, am not going to be in favor of starting to spread that out to multiple contractors. We do one for the simple reason that it makes our life bearable among everything else that we have to do. I guess I'd ask Mary Feeney, if I could, what would a lien on the property look like? What is that? I know what a lien is, but how functionally would that work?
I'm guessing that it would be more like a loan
That's what I'm.
to
yeah.
the owner with a mortgage on the property, and then he would have to pay off the loan. And
At
if he
closing,
doesn't-
it just got to get cleaned up.
Well, I see this as maybe structured as a loan with a payment due, and then, of course, if you don't pay, then we would have a mortgage on the property, and then we would foreclose, something like that.
Yeah,
Well, I think what
that
you
makes, Henry, that makes sense to me. Otherwise, there's no end in sight. We could demolish it and the property could sit there for 15 years. But I think back to the first issue, regardless of what we say, you're going to have to go Topeka and convince them that this is something that we should do. Following the proper channels, they come back to us and present it, just like they would any other economic development initiative, and then we vote on it. At least that's the way I see it. Thank you.
Further
I
question?
do appreciate the, and from a real estate standpoint, creating a lien that gets paid at closing, that's actually pretty simple. And that would be better than nothing.
Well, I think the point that the deputy mayor makes is important, that we need to make sure that if we move forward, or there was some positive movement in that way, that it wouldn't just sit there and not be developed in a predetermined timeline, not just something that, well, we're working on it is not enough. It's got to be something that has been practical for the project and that it shows some continuous movement.
Your Honor, if I may, I sold property to this very governing body maybe 17 or 18 years ago. The property sits vacant. The property doesn't pay real estate taxes. And the property has a sign from a Kansas City real estate broker on it that doesn't even have a listing agreement. I'd rather walk down there and see my competition's name. I'd rather see KS Commercial or Doug Bassett's sign on the land I sold JEDO. So if you're talking about deals that sit dormant, let's talk about all the land that you have in the land bank.
Let's talk about what you brought to us tonight, and that is
All
a
right.
request for the.
At least I got it in on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions for Mr. McClure? Sure. Commissioner Mays?
So, I mean, I guess my problem with this right now, and believe me, I want to see the Travelers Inn torn down. I hope that we're all in agreement on that. I think it would be, I drive by it multiple times per day. I think it would be great to have that gone. However, I feel like there's not much of a plan here. That it's a concept. And typically when folks come here to us, there is a project that we're incentivizing. And the project here is just demolition. Is that there? There's not a redevelopment attached, and that's my concern. Is there's not a redevelopment attached to it, and I like the idea of a loan, I guess you could say. I think that would be a way for us to incentivize it, and then still get our money back at the end of it, or JEDO's money, or Go Topeka, or whoever. I don't know who it technically belongs to, but but I think that the other possibility, these are TIF eligible expenses as well. So if there were a developer that were to come in, that could be part of a TIF district as well, in which they could get reimbursed on this. But I know that with a demolition, to do that prior to the sale of the property, it just doesn't work to do that, right? I mean,
Aaron, or Commissioner Mays, I laid out the plan. The plan starts at Country Club to Travelers. The plan starts by removing we got to cut out the cancer. And then it makes it shovel ready. It will show better. Just having it. Why did you create a land bank in this town? You just created a land bank, and all the title that JEDO has, or Go Topeka has, is a land bank. So if we look at this as a land bank opportunity, and if you create some sort of lien, that might be creative, but the energy's there. I've got Travelers or Country Club wants to tear down and redevelop that land. I thought I mapped out the plan.
well, and I guess I would say this is really, in my mind, the first step of a plan. That if we, let's say these two properties get demolished, what comes next? I mean, I think that's really where I'm at right now, is that I just want to see a letter of intent or something from
I'll send you, I have a letter of intent that I'm massaging right now with another person that wanted to go next to Chick-fil-A. And we had to tell them no, because then we had a bigger deal. But this is the beginning. I get a daily report of all the people that want to go onto the boulevard from all my listings. And there's a lot of interest. But we got to start, I mean, the KTA helped that add value to that corner. Having the Travelers gone, it also sends a signal to the next two hotel people that, hey, these guys are serious. And I'm having conversations with them today. But I can show you one letter of intent that I've got for the land on the country club. But right now, nobody wants to look at Travelers. And also, too, you know, I've got people living in tractor trailers in front of Travelers, which doesn't really help, you know, the salesman. I need all the help I can get.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Rochelle a question, please, if I could.
Good evening.
Good evening. So the funding for JEDO comes from the half-cent sales tax, correct?
Correct.
That's our revenue. We looked at it earlier in the audit reports. Where does that money go?
A portion goes to Topeka for economic development,
$5 million a year?
$5 million, and then the remainder is split between Shawnee County at 52%, and the city of Topeka gets 48%.
And those are specified for what?
In the interlocal agreement, there are a list of specified projects for both the city and the county.
So once you take the revenue and you pay Topeka the $5 million, split the rest between the two public works departments, how much money's left?
None, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cook, did you have a question?
Yes. And Deputy Mayor Noble, that was my point, is that this body doesn't have any money to allocate, so it would either come from one of our, or joint city-county budgets, or it would come from a Topeka initiative.
Agreed. And I think we're going to hear the next item up here is we probably don't have enough money to do all of the projects that we promised the voters when the half-cent sales tax was approved. So that really leaves only one source, correct?
That would be correct.
And that would be through our contractor.
That would
correct.
And now, Mr. McClure, when you speak of Country Club and then you speak of Travelers Inn, we kind of skip over the Topeka Plaza Inn and the Relax Inn that are between those two properties, don't we?
Well, today,
Larry Shortstop, too.
yeah, today, but I'm working on it.
So in 6 months, are you going to come back to this board and say, I need to demo 2 more motels?
I don't know if I'd get it added to the agenda by then.
But, I mean, is it going to be a continual request of demoing more and more
And what
property?
if it were? It might be a good thing to help Topeka economic development wise.
Okay.
It's changing the paradigm. You know, maybe we need to take a long look at how we do things. Maybe it's time that we focus on retail developments and make some changes. I tell you, the one thing that really is interesting to me is the thought of land being dormant for so long, especially when I sold land to this body and it sit there 17, 18 years. And, you know, we put up money to do a study to have a break in access, and the KDOT would approve a break in access on Highway 75. And I will tell you that when I had to bring in my contracts for the 200 acres that I had under a development agreement, it wasn't more than 2 weeks after my development agreement expired on 100 acres, 2 weeks that a contract was signed with Frito-Lay. and we're just going to wait Henry out. Well, nobody could wait me out with Dana Kay. So that land went on in perpetuity with me as far as our agreement. So the idea, it took us weeks almost after we bought out the ground lease at Gordman's to have 2 new deals. There's energy out there. Just got to have it shovel ready.
Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. McClure, you know, we've talked about this a lot. And as Commissioner Mays, and I think, well, I won't speak for everyone, but I think we all would love to see travelers wiped off the face of the earth, as you say.
Yes, sir.
Sounds a little destructive, but I guess, though, kind of like, as Commissioner Mays said, I would love to actually see a project, you know, something wrapped all up on this. And I guess I'm wondering if perhaps between now and our next meeting, if you could get with the staff at GTP and get something put together. And as Commissioner Mays also said, I'm quoting you a lot, so I'll owe you some royalties here or something.
I'll
but-
correct you if you're wrong.
Thanks. Get ready. A lot of these, as he said, are TIF eligible expenses, and I think that area is all in the area we've predetermined to be a TIF area. So I guess, listen, I'm in favor of whatever we can do to help you get this redeveloped. This would be great for Topeka, great for that area, but yeah, I'm also having a hard time doing it just for this one item.
So the very thing that I faced with day to day in the street is what I face with right here. What about these other 2 hotels? The very thing. So if I got one completely removed, and I tell them I'm working on the second one, but the very thing, the weak salesman out there that I am, I got, hey, why are these people living in these tractor trailers? And what are you going to do about these hotels over here? But I have commissioned Cook, Flat, and Strobel to put together an overall game plan to, and I've also, Schwert gave me a proposal. So I have good intentions, and I'm working towards having a master plan for the property that I control. And I'm putting my foot in the door. And these are all fair questions. I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. But I do want to try to figure out how we can do things different in our community. I really do. And I know I owe you a psychiatry bill.
If I could, Mayor, thank you. I will say, as you probably remember, the council voted to allot up to $1.5 million, I want to say, for the demolition of White Lakes. Now, we didn't have to do that because the owner ended up doing that himself. But again, I can only speak for myself. I would be supportive of the city doing some sort of agreement with you to help with this rather than JEDO. I just feel like that sets a dangerous precedent, I guess.
I appreciate that. I didn't come down here to waste your time. But I did come here as a guy that's been involved. I was the guy that went out with a group called Yes Topeka. And I promoted at the Kiwanis Club and the breakfast meetings of getting the sales tax. So I've been in it all along. Hey, I had a great payday the day you guys bought that land from me. It was one of my biggest paydays ever, and I appreciate it, and I love you. Thank you. And I like the idea of the city helping. You know, I came down to the city and showed you all the reciprocal easement agreement that we drafted for Mainline Printing and then Triple Net Properties, who owned it. I drafted that because we were worried about, at the time, the owner was worried about what Mainline would do with their property. So we sold them Sears and 9 acres of land. Well, today I've been asked to give a proposal to work for Mainline Printing. Well, I've got stuff to do down here. If I get from Country Club to Travelers, I go, that's going to add more value to your land. But coming across from Walmart, being able to come right out 38th Street and across from Cable Dahmer, you've got great retail land. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut the land basically in half. We'll have some land that faces Kansas Avenue, and we'll have some land that faces the boulevard. And the city has got the key component right at 38th Street. There's some land, if you look in my drawing, in the first exhibit, I've got a drawing where it shows a red access road. And if I can do this project on city land, there's city land just east between the two, that starts kicking off the whole project. And I would like to have a better relationship with your contractor, I would, and maybe I need to work on it. But also too, I think it's our right to be able to come here and not agree with your contractor and have the opportunity to pitch. But the city, I was talking to staff about how important this city land is, because if you can break traffic right, and you can break traffic north and south and do a frontage road. So you can't tell me that I'm not working on a plan. I'm winging it. I'm a gunslinger. You know, I don't have a bunch of people putting together fancy graphs and flow charts, but I'm working on it.
Further questions for Mr. McClure?
Yes, Henry, I think all of us like to see improvements on the boulevard. In fact, I was on a little committee that bring back the boulevard, and we were making some headway. I don't know, the committee seemed to run out of gas. Hasn't met in a while, but I think this is a good start. Getting rid of some of these old buildings, cleaning up around the old mall was a good start. It sounds like you have some retail coming into the area there by the old Gordman's building, and that's great. I think what people want to see, though, is maybe some graphics, something on paper that shows some aerial photos. We didn't get that tonight, and I don't think anybody had anything in their package here tonight. So if you come back and give us a little bit more, something that we can see, a more of a visual, I think that would help a bunch and help us.
I'm happy to go through channels.
Okay. But, all right.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one last.
Commissioner Cook?
This is actually a question for Matt Bavarnik, putting you on the spot, Matt, and maybe perhaps Molly Howie with Go Topeka and the Greater Topeka Partnership. Several years ago, this board authorized as an initiative for Go Topeka the renovation of certain commercial buildings, and that one of those being the former Kmart building on Southeast 29th Street, along with some other properties. So we've had initiatives in the past for either the demolition or renovation of those properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, a few years ago, we did try to start a retail, kind of a infill redevelopment program, if you will, that was a matching program where we blasted out, I think it was 5 or 7 catalytic properties, Deer Creek, California Crossing, White Lakes, and said that if you would invest in certain ways that would improve the aesthetics and the structure of the building and the marketability of the building, that we would incentivize at a certain percentage. I don't remember if it was 25 or 50%. We didn't have any takers that wanted to put the skin in the game.
So we have had initiatives in the past, and as we're working on our 2024 budget for Go Topeka, that might be something that we would look at as retail development, infill development, and those sorts of things. Is that something that Go Topeka is still open to, is infill and retail?
Yeah, we can definitely have that conversation. I think that when we can do something to close the gap and create future development and vertical progress, that we would love to have those conversations.
All right. I just was trying to make sure my memory was correct on that exact initiative. And again, it's been several years, and it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Can I say something also? getting rid of these motels is music to our ears. So we want to be part of that. We want to be part of that solution. It's not an automatic that it's Topeka that should be paying for it, or the city, or maybe some other way. But we definitely want. I mean, that is something that's in our wheelhouse, and it's also something that's on our radar. And South Topeka Boulevard is important to us, and so we're in lockstep with the owner, and in wanting that to be off the face of the earth. And I do think that's an aggressive statement, but that is something that is really important to us. We were a lot of you were involved in these conversations. We were very involved in the demolition of White Lakes. We worked on that to exhaustion, and so we want this as much as everybody else does. We just need to sit down and have the conversation, especially with the owner, and in a coherent and an organized way.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, Henry,
Any other questions? Am I dismissed? You don't have to vote it down tonight. And I'm more delighted. Thank you. That was nice you bringing that up, Commissioner Cook. There's more plans than I'm really letting out today, and I need to work better on my presentation. I didn't use one swear word tonight or anything that wasn't politically correct. So I think I'll quit while I'm ahead. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. McClure. Okay, we'll move on. We have some presentations this evening. The clerk will read.
First one's Countywide half-cent sales tax project annual update.
Okay. Mr. Niehaus?
Good evening, everyone. JEDO board members, it's a pleasure to be here. We're about 7 years into a half-cent retailer sales tax program, and I'm glad to be able to present tonight a 2023 update that includes a project update, a priority listing, at least for the city of Topeka, and as a bonus, it provides an estimate of upcoming revenues for the rest of the program's life. Two things I want you, or I wish to leave with you this evening, two important points. These projects, the costs of these projects are going up at a much greater rate than the inflation, general inflation rate. From a Shawnee County standpoint, we've seen bridges that in the past cost us $500,000 are approaching $900,000 today. So these projects are increasing in cost tremendously. The other thing I want to leave with you is the fact that if you look on the Shawnee County page, we provide a range of revenue estimates from 1% per year increase to 4% per year increase. And the important point that I want to point out or show you is that if you go between 1% and 2.5%, that's approximately $6 million swing in revenue for the, at least to the end of the project. Likewise, if you go from 2.5% to 4%, that's another approximately $6 million swing. So although at this point in time, depending on your perspective, revenues may look good or they may look bad, they're very sensitive and they're subject to ongoing changes in revenue. I noted in my letter, my cover letter to you that, for example, if the state changes sales tax on groceries, it could have a significant impact on revenues going forward. So with that, I do not want to take up a lot of your time. I do look forward to your questions. I will not, if you have specific project questions, I will not be able to answer those for the city of Topeka, but I do look forward to your questions.
Okay. Comments or questions from the board? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Niehaus, thank you for coming tonight and in this report. I was wondering, in extrapolating the cost in future years, did you use the same like inflator that we've had the last year or so?
Well, the city of Topeka, for example, they had a variable rate. As you moved out in time, they felt like they were less able to adequately estimate what the revenue projections would be. So they start out at 8% and they go down to about 1% at the end of the sales tax program. The county took a little different tact. We assumed just an average increase per year, 1%, 2.5%, and 4%. We independently came up with our estimates. And I think you might question, well, why we did that. From my perspective, it was a positive because, again, from the Shawnee County spreadsheet, I think you can see the sensitivity in the data. From the City of Topeka spreadsheet, the City of Topeka has a heck of a lot of sales tax projects. You are particularly at risk for reduction in revenues because you're going to have to split that shortfall over a lot of projects.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't ask the question very well. I meant the expense of the projects.
We came up with a best case scenario or the best estimate at this time.
Okay. For
many of the projects, I'm guessing they're rough. For those projects that may be led in a year or two, our estimates are better. So we came up with our best estimate for these project costs as of today.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner?
We were able to, Shawnee County, complete the renovations to the Stormont Vale Event Center on budget and ahead of schedule, and that was really, the pandemic helped us in that respect because of no activity occurring within the event center at that time, and we were able to move work along. Is that accurate?
I'd say that's very accurate. Okay. Yes.
Whereas with our main project on the sales tax is Rochester Road and the expansion of that roadway from 46th Street all the way to the Walmart, which is close to the Highway 24.
Correct.
That project, I know that you've talked to the county commission at length about it, but perhaps our city council members aren't as familiar with it. Do you want to talk about that project briefly and what it would entail?
Sure. Again, the project goes from approximately the north end of the Walmart complex across Soldier Creek, so that involves a bridge widening, and then we would continue north across 35th Street, which is a great location for a roundabout, continue north to 50th. In 2015, the project, when these sales tax projects were identified and an estimate was created, I believe the project costs for that project was around $12.7 million. I don't believe there's any way possible to build that project today for $12.7 million. And we don't start on the project till 2027, so it's highly unlikely we can build that project for $12.7 million. The things that we're talking about here is we have a road, we have housing on both sides of the road that's crowded in next to the roadway. We want to build this project to complete street standards, so we're talking a 5-foot sidewalk on one side, a 10-foot multi-use path on the other. We're talking probably 3 lanes with a center continuous left turn lane. We're talking curb and gutter. We're talking enclosed storm drainage system. This project's going to cost a lot, and it's going to be a coordination and a public involvement nightmare. So those are the reasons that I think that project cost is estimated to go up so much from when it was first estimated in 2015.
Mr. Niehaus, from a public works standpoint, why is this an important project for Shawnee County?
Well, I think it was selected over Topeka Boulevard, for example, because of the high school. And I think Rochester Road is an important road for high school traffic, Seaman High School traffic. I think it's an important road for those people that want to travel south to the Walmart complex and the shopping area. So it is an important project. I think it's mostly outside the city limits of Topeka, but I would think from a city standpoint, it's also an important project because it brings people into the city and spends so they can spend their money.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Kurt, if I'm looking at this right, so your current estimate for your remaining projects is well, not the remaining projects, but your current project estimate is 127 million, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you have three scenarios for revenue.
Right.
If, worst case, your low-range revenue or an increase in prices beyond what you've anticipated, how do you, and I'm going to ask the same question of the city's Public Works Director as well, how do you handle that delta in revenue? Because you only have really two projects out there.
Sure. For example, on 46th Street, keeping in mind the revenue that may be generated, and again, it's uncertain, but you have to kind of play it safe. We're designing that project to a budget. And we're going to prioritize amenities on that project. And as we get further along in that project, we may have to do away with some of these amenities. On Rochester Road, hey, I know it's not going to be very popular from my standpoint, but maybe we have to do away with the center left turn lane. In other words, we will have to accommodate. There's a choice. You either don't build the project at all, which I think is the least desirable option, or you rescope the project to fit within the budget constraints.
Very good, thank you. And if I could ask Braxton, so Braxton, the city has anticipated a potential shortfall in revenue by reprioritizing the project. Is that correct?
So we reprioritize based on other factors,
Okay.
not based on the lack of projected revenue. So I will sound like a broken record to what Kurt just said. Ultimately, the governing body will have to make some very difficult choices in terms of either reducing scope or eliminating projects, but those will come to you as part of the CIP. The reprioritization that we did was based on other factors, most notably PCI, as well as project costs in terms of pushing 17th Street out and leapfrogging Topeka Boulevard above 17th Street. We did the same analysis in terms of best case, middle of the road, and worst case scenario that the finance director is prepared to talk about. For the purpose of my spreadsheet, I took his middle of the road, and that's what I went off of.
Thank you for that. Are there opportunities to look at these projects as the projects that are closer to the top priority-wise? Is there opportunities to look at reducing the scope of those projects, for instance, as we move along, as opposed to waiting until we get to the final few projects before we look at scope reduction of some sort?
Absolutely. Huntoon is a perfect example. As we engage a consultant to start the public discourse and the public involvement next year, which will be in 2024, one of the things that I'm going to have our consultant do is to come up with possible scenarios. And let's say, for example, one of those will be, what if the project is just a mill and overlay? Another scenario would be, what if the project is full depth reconstruction? And then the third scenario would be full depth reconstruction with full reconstruction of the appropriate utilities, and basically come with some concept level to the governing body and say, which approach do you want us to take? Because that give and take needs to happen with the public, because I don't want to go and have a public engagement and basically have everyone think that it's going to look exactly like 12th Street when the appetite of the governing body, and because of the tremendous cost increases that we're seeing on the inflation on construction projects, lends itself better to a mill and overlay.
I really think that's important. I appreciate that answer. You know, we made a commitment when this program started in 2005 to complete projects that were listed in the ballot or were at least advertised as infrastructure projects. We were fortunate the first 10 years. We had plenty of money, had money left over. Life was good. It's not going to be as easy this time, but I appreciate both you and the county taking a look at what we can do to meet the obligation of improving those roads, and even if it does mean changing the scope a little bit. Maybe we don't get 10-foot pedestrian paths. Maybe we don't get bike lanes or something like that. Maybe we have to settle for open ditches instead of storm sewers or whatever it is. But as long as we can at least deliver on the promises, I think that's going to be a win for everybody. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner?
this is a question for our legal counsel. And the 2017 to 2031 countywide half-cent sales tax, the sales tax ballot question, did it actually lay out each one of the projects within the ballot question, or did it say that it was to be for infrastructure between the city and the county?
No, the ballot question was very specific. It actually identified all of the specific projects, 18 projects.
And so as a ballot question, if there are deficiencies within that, we would have a obligation as the governing bodies respective for the city and the county to complete those that were approved by ballot question, correct?
Well, the interlocal agreement basically allows JEDO to prioritize the projects. Yeah, that's a legal term. It's been a long day.
Get your Black's dictionary.
Yeah, we can change the scope and do the things that Kurt and Braxton mentioned, but the projects that are listed in the ballot question, they are the ones that the countywide retail sales tax can be spent on.
Because if my memory serves me correctly, when we were going through the interlocal agreement, I think there was great discussion within the city council at the time about whether or not they would engage in the projects immediately, or they would try to save up some of the money so that they would be able to do more in cash and be able to bond less. Councilwoman Hiller, you may recall that discussion, and does my memory serve me correct?
I don't recall that for these, but we probably did have it. It's been a regular conversation of mine, I know.
So if the city was to want to reprioritize some of their projects, I mean, obviously, the city has a lot more projects on their list than the county has on theirs. Would that be then an action taken by city council and then brought back to JEDO for a revision to the interlocal agreement? Is that what would transpire?
Well, the interlocal agreement actually addresses what happens if there's not enough money for all these projects, and it would be up to JEDO to figure out, update the priority list. Presumably that would entail conversations with the city and the county.
But from a strict point of governance, wouldn't it, if I was a member of city council, I would not necessarily want the county telling me what projects are number 1 or what project's number 10. I would think that as the governing body, they would want to bring that back to JEDO and say, these are the constraints that we have, and this is how we would like to restructure our interlocal agreement. So, just
Yes.
an observation.
Further comments, Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really good conversation to have, and it's probably timely to have it now. I guess one of the things I think back to is the prior half-cent sales tax that we had, where back when, 10 years before or whatever it was, everything was 5 lanes. And now we have complete streets and have mutually as well as separately kind of rethought even what we're going to build in streets. I haven't looked through this list with that lens, Complete Streets was new when we started. And I was going to ask Kurt a question just because I don't get to ask the county. But one of the things that's happened in the city, when we do buildings, we require them to have a swale for their water runoff instead, so that not as much will have to go into the storm sewer system, right? And I wondered, and Councilman Dobler mentioned it, whether the county, I know we ran into trouble with like the Tyler project where we were installing storm sewers because we always do, but there wasn't a system there in the area at all. And is leaving the ditches, for lack of a better term, instead of the expense and then the maintenance of storm sewers, something that you all have considered?
Yes, we have. For example, on our sales tax project on Northwest 46th Street, we are considering open ditches to save money and to make this road project a little more environmentally friendly. The problem with ditches, in my opinion, they fill in. They're a maintenance headache. And they waste space, right-of-way space. Whereas curb and gutter with an enclosed drainage system, you can pack more project within a specific project width. Yeah, you're probably not going to get that filtering action of native vegetation or what have you. But again, it's a trade-off. What do you have room for? Do you have room for an 8-foot shoulder or a 2-foot curb and gutter?
Understood, and sometimes you don't have as much right away. It really was a question.
Yeah.
Because it's come up as those changes have emerged for all of us, kind of going back to how we did things in the past in some
So
cases.
as a public works director, I have to evaluate those pluses and minuses, and then we decide how to move forward.
Thank you. It really was a question.
Kurt, the county bridges, were they delineated as part of the sales tax, which bridges we were going to do, or is that more of a priority list?
Nope, they were not delineated.
Okay, all right.
Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, I only have a few months left, so, but I guess my advice going forward is, I mean, I know both of these guys and worked with both of them, and quite honestly, I think they're both capable of making the decisions about scope, changes of these jobs to keep them within the budgets, as the deputy mayor said, and I think that's a great approach. I think the important thing is that we get all the streets touched that we talked about in the ballot question. That's, I guess, as a voter and as a member right now, that's what's important to me. But I have a lot of confidence in these guys' ability to manage that. So, and I guess I equally don't have as much confidence in governing bodies getting involved in those things. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you.
Is there, Freddie, is there interest earned on this money that comes in?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For the funds from JEDO, yes. And I think that just to bring up a little bit of the difference in methods that the city and the county used for the projections of revenue for sale tax. In this case, the city wanted to utilize an approach a little bit different, one that would probably give you less comfort in the lack of uncertainty for forecasting sale tax beyond 2023. So in this case, we utilize a statistical method that gives you a wide range of values. And in this case, the city decided to go with the most likely, kind of like middle road. In this case, we determined the revenue was not going to continue at the same rate. So that's what we're seeing, a flattening on potential revenues from sale taxes for JEDO.
Did you have a follow-up? Did you have a follow-up? Okay. Checking around? Thank you. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to item 4B, the Topeka quarterly update.
Okay, thank you for your patience this evening. I know some of you had a really long evening last night, so I will commit that our staff will be short on their portions. However, we do have a couple of guest speakers here that we want to make sure get some time at the podium. So I'll kick off the report, and the team will go through their departments, and then we'll all be here for questions, of course, as well. So first, I just want to recognize one of our team members, Trina Goss. She was selected as a fellow, one of 35 across the United States from the U.S. Chamber Foundation to focus on education and workforce. It's a 6-month fellowship, so she will be able to tap into the knowledge of her peers and a network and knowledge base to dive deep in the talent pipeline as it's one of our priorities within Go Topeka, of course, and every company that we talk with is very focused on workforce development and how we continue to grow and attract more. So just wanted to give a shout out to Trina and tell her congratulations about that fellowship.
Great.
You have a quarterly report in your packet. It was for Q2, so we'll be touching on some of the items that are big and substantial and kind of exciting and more current than maybe what's in the printed report. I do want to orient you to something new in the printed report and give some recognition to Deputy Mayor Dobler for kind of calling this out to us. We, in our reports, always report on metrics around job creation, capital investment, and incentives, but sometimes those are in more of an anecdotal form and on a project-by-project basis. And so we wanted to create a dashboard that shows year-to-date numbers for you that's in a more simplified form. So in your packet and on the screen here, we've got just a high-level dashboard that shows everything from small and minority business support all the way on up to the traditional larger incentives that come before you on a project-by-project basis. So it just shows the number of new jobs, retained jobs, projects that we have in our pipeline. Some of these will wiggle a little bit based on we could get a project that comes in and out in the same quarter. We could have a project that comes in and then we lose it or they complete it within the same quarter. So some of the numbers will be a little bit odd. And then with the small business incentives being quarterly payouts, there will be some lag and some differences in timing there. But this at least shows you a snapshot in time, and we will commit to keeping this updated quarterly and be in the front of your reports and in the front of all of our verbal reports like tonight, just so that we can keep it front and center. But if you have any questions between quarters, go ahead and reach out about that. Actually, that's all I have for the intro portion. I'm going to kick it off to the rest of the department heads to keep trucking through the report.
Thank you, Molly.
All right, good evening. Stephanie Moran, Senior Vice President of Innovation. As most of you are aware, since our last meeting, Stephanie Norwood has joined our team as Director of Entrepreneurship and Small Business. So she's joining us for her first JEDO meeting, and I'm going to let her do a quick update on all things small business.
Hello. Happy to be here. Well, to kick it off, we want to share with you a couple of our recipients and their stories. And so just jumping right into it, I would like to bring automation controls up to the front. And let them tell you a little bit about their experience.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Paul Brown. This is my wife, Regina. We are the owners of Automation Controls. We're a small business here in Topeka, and we do what's called OT. We work in industrial facilities here to do their automation work. And we reached out to Go Topeka probably 5 or 6 years ago initially, and they've been helpful in us moving our business forward, hiring employees, providing equipment grants for us, and we just really enjoyed that partnership that we've gotten with them. And we've also been involved with Washburn Tech here locally. We're on their advisory board, and we've hired 3 full-time people from them. So we're committed to Topeka and helping the business factor and manufacturing grow.
And our next phase we're trying to get into is robotics because of the shortage of workers in manufacturing. So, Paul, you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, there's going to be, and most people are seeing it in the news, there's going to be a pretty big explosion of robots and specifically something called a cobot, which is something that can work alongside of a person. And so that's an area that we're going to be working in the next year to get off the ground. We had some vendors reach out to us because there's a shortage of people like us that help support that type of industry. So we're going to be working in that area.
We have 2 customers who've asked us to help get robots into their plants. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you. We appreciate what
We appreciate-
Topeka has done for us to propel us forward. So
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
We
Good to hear
appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they had received some incentives towards equipment and marketing where they were able to update their website as well. Next, we have our guest with Mark's Overhead Doors, and they'll tell you a little bit about their experience.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Mays, and this is Mark Burdick.
My guy.
And yeah, I am not native to Topeka. I actually joined in a partnership with Mark in about 2018, and at the time it was about 4 employees there. We do residential and commercial installation and repair of garage doors. We may have done some. I know we've done it for Shawnee County for quite a while, Public Works and everything. So, and we only had like 4 people there, and at this time we're about 15 people. We're pushing about 15 people working on our business, and one of the reasons we have that is because of you guys. You don't often get to look people in the face and tell them thank you for things that they do, and I want to make sure we say thank you. It's been a blessing to be able to be supported by a community. I'm not used to that. You know, I'm from the city. I'm from Kansas City, and coming into Topeka and having a business here has been quite the experience. We have been able to receive funding from Go Topeka, and in that we were able to get a couple of scissor lifts, a trailer, and from that we provided more jobs. We were able to take on larger contracts, and your investment has not only benefited us, I believe it benefited the community. People like Mike and Luke and other people who are working for us now are working for us because of what you've done. So I want to make sure we tell you thank you, and thank you to Go Topeka. Easy to work with. I think I got introduced to them about a year ago or so ago, and we were able to buy equipment. We spent an amount of $30,000, and they were able to give us half of that back, and it really made a. It's one thing when people say they want to help you, but it's real tangible when they give you money, if you know what I mean. So that really just spoke to us in volume. So thank you. Appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. It's good stuff for us and good stuff for everybody. So I don't know if I need to say more. Oh, all right. You want to say something?
Thank you. It's good to hear your success.
We do. Thank you.
And they almost used that equipment to help us out change some signage before India Fest, but we were able to figure it out. But he did jump at the chance to try to help us. So next, we're going to talk about our small business incentive new pilot program that we are targeting our growing Hispanic and Latino community. So we are offering these information sessions. We did earlier this week. We offered our first 2 at the library, and it was completely in Spanish in connection with the city and Ernesto and his team, as well as our growing team here. We have Manny and Israel. They're not here this evening, but they were able to translate all of our resources for this information session where people were able to come in and receive that information in a location that was accessible and neutral for them so we can help build the trust for that community. And it was really good conversations, very engaging, and they are ready to share the information with their friends and community. So we're hopeful to see this help bolster the usage of these funds and resources in that community. We were hopeful to have it translated as well tonight on screen, but we weren't able to do so. But like I said, it did go very well, and it was good conversations. So this slide represents the geographical use of these funds. As you can see, we're taking them to all corners of the county and into the city. Give you a second to preview that, but good area there. Okay, next we have our graph here just to show some of our demographics. Just wanted to point out, as you can see, that our Spanish, Hispanic, and Latino usage is at 8%, and current stats show that we are at 12.3 for the city as far as our current community. So we're hoping these programs help raise that number as well to help better represent our community there. We have done a lot of promotion for these programs. We're really kind of pushing it so that way we can share this with more people. And this includes being a guest on the Topeka Talks podcast with some great hosts. You might know them. And we were able to bring Pedro on, who was one of our recent recipients. And he shared his story of how he was able to use the incentives to redo the back patio of the wheelbarrow. And if you haven't been there yet, highly suggest you should. You can now go all year long. And he doubled his seating and was able to expand his services, and will be hiring from that. So it's a great story that he shared, and we're hoping to, in the future, record this in Spanish and have those conversations translated so that that's just additional materials and resources to share this message. Small Business Council is evolving a little bit. We are meeting bi-monthly now, and in the off months, we are offering training sessions that are free or low cost to members in our community. These will be, this first one is Path to Profitability with a local host, presenter. We will offer different trainings to cover different needs, and we're gonna poll our community, our small business council, as well as small businesses to see what they need and what they wanna learn about and aim those trainings for that. So just to get a little more active in the community, that is the goal. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you,
Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to provide a quick update from Plug and Play. Lindsay is actually attending a Plug and Play event in New York, so she's unable to be here tonight, but I'll update on her behalf. So as you all know, we held the expo here in June, had great results out of that. I think we've got a couple of slides to talk through. So in the last batch, we had a total of 23 startups. We had 11 in our animal health, and then we also had 12 in ag tech. Out of those companies, we had 15 here. The ones that are circled in yellow were attendees here in June. We had great reception. We've been able to make several connections with these companies throughout the community. There's a lot of conversations still going on how they can partner and or collaborate with some of our local partners, and we'll continue to update you on those collaborations and stories as they come about. In total, we had 176 attendees at this kind of inaugural event. We had 30 speakers, 15 startups did their pitches. We had 2 keynote speakers and 1 panel, industry panel. We also did 2 partner showcases, so we wanted to show how the relationship works between our corporate sponsors, such as Hills and Cargill, and some of the startups that they've worked with, Stenco and Bond. And so we were able to talk about what those relations look like and how to best partner. We also had 740 million reached on media coverage. So we had really strong media coverage coming out of this event. I had a YouTube video to show you, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to show that tonight with some of the technical difficulties we're having, but I'm happy to send that out to you guys so you can take a look at a quick summary of the event. Just as looking forward, the new batch has just been selected. They actually started orientation today. And so we will have, we actually have 11 animal health companies joining that new batch and 13 in ag tech. A couple of quick changes, and we'll be sharing more about this as we move forward. But our local plug and play team is growing. So Lindsay has added Ann Gundon to her team. I think a couple of you met her at the last business unwind. She's joining as program manager. Lindsay is moving to program director and will be director over ag tech and animal health moving forward. So our plug and play team and presence is growing, so we're excited for that. And like I said, we'll have more info to share in future dates. But we'll be announcing those new startups here in the next week or so as we get those press releases ready to go out, and we're excited for the next batch. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So on this slide, you will see the current project pipeline. This is for new business attraction only, so any companies looking outside of Topeka or Shawnee County. Currently, we have 24. No real trends that I'm noticing. One commonality in the last 2 projects that came through, they're actually looking for over 50 megawatts of power, which we know is a mega project and really hard to come by. So just working really closely with Evergy to figure out what it would take to fulfill a project that is that large.
Just some updates regarding aviation. With that new position filled at MTAA, we're able to keep the momentum going, having conversations and talking about what the timeline looks like, realistic needs for maybe rehabbing some buildings out there. So working with Curtis and getting those conversations going. So it's really good to have the right people at the table having those conversations. Kind of a chicken and egg thing, but at least we're still seeing some momentum going on that. Next week, there is a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor, along with the other communities that are involved in the NIAR project. So we will be attending Wichita and Salina. So hope to have kind of a status update and next steps for that project sometime next week. You also have a economic development guidebook there that I provided all of you guys. On this next slide, you can see that. This was really a big shout out to our marketing department. They really helped a lot with that. This will be used for new business attraction, just as a resource to give site selectors, company executives, the information that they're looking for when coming to a community. So it has all the information that they'll need. And then we're also moving forward with a new marketing strategy with a third-party resource whose whole model is really connecting brands with their target audience through digital marketing. With that will also come a client portal, so we'll see who's visiting our website, their industry, their titles, their company, so then we can reach out and really quantify those leads, which will be great, and we hope to start that, or plan to start that in Q4. That is the update that I have.
Thank you, Ashley.
Good evening.
Hello, Glenda.
Just share with you what's been going on in my neck of the woods. We have been, well, if you're familiar with the DEI Summit, this is our third year hosting the DEI Summit. Thanks to Prairie Band for allowing us to hold it out at their conference center. But it was an outstanding event. Dr. Shirley Davis and Mr. Joy Aviles were our two keynote speakers. One, Shirley Davis at breakfast, and Joey was our lunch speaker. They energized the participants, but they also delivered strong messages about the power of changing mindsets and shifting cultures. They also provided us with education. We had 6 workshops. It was very, no time to do anything but go into the education mode. And so our goal was to make sure that we provided strong education to the individuals that were in attendance. We had almost 200 individuals there. And it was such a beautiful room because everybody that was there was there to learn how to do equitable delivery to their clients or to their community. And so we felt real comfortable that that these kinds of meetings and gatherings do work. We did surveys, and we have survey results that I can share with you in an email, but the surveys were very strong as well. They really showed that our community is ready to kind of, to embrace equity and opportunity across the long scale. So we also had, August was Black Business Month, and so we actually celebrated the Black businesses in a number of ways. Those Black-owned businesses were prominently featured on radio. They were featured on our Go Topeka website, and they were provided with a reception afterward, because what we want them to know is that we want them to grow, and what we do at Go Topeka is surely embrace and embody the growth of small minority women in business. And so we did have a celebration at the end of that. We launched what we call a new network, and it's called the Fusion Network. And the goal of the Fusion Network is to, all of the equity and opportunity events, activities, trainings, all of that will fall under the Fusion Network as a new brand. And so anytime you hear the Fusion Network coming out of the partnership, you know that I'm talking a little bit about equity and opportunity. So we launched the Fusion Network. In the future, you will hear pitch contests under the Fusion Network, workshops, Black Business Month, things like Medweek, business matchmakers, any kind of training or opportunity that fuel inclusion, growth and development will be under the Fusion Network. And then finally, we did what we call community conversations in June and July, and they were the beginning of a collaboration with Brown versus Board to celebrate the 70th anniversary. These community conversations centered on things like making sure that we understood the cultures that surrounded us and kind of got a little bit more education about who he is or she is or they are, and not made assumptions, because a lot of times when we see a group of people, we automatically jump to assumptions, and this was one of the opportunities for us to talk through those things and kind of understand a little bit more. So we'll be doing those kinds of community conversations with the Brown versus Board coalition up until May of next year. We also had the opportunity to take 8 entrepreneurs to a gathering that's called Black and Bankable Intensive. Sheila Glasper, who is out of Manhattan, called me and asked me if we could collaborate and bring those groups in. So you had entrepreneurs from Manhattan, Lawrence, and Kansas in this one-day intensive where they learned about bank opportunities. They learned about general education, and then they went through financial training as well. So it was a very good day. It was 8 hours long, and it was 8 hours, like it said, it was an intensive. We also had one loan prospect throughout the last 90 days, and he's looking to. Well, initially he was going to expand his business, but now he's looking to start a whole new different business, and we're actually meeting with him and going through what our needs are and what his possibilities might be. We are working, last week we had what we call the Women's Initiative, and that was a panel of 6 leaders in the community talking about, what the next level of leadership might look like. There were about 150, I think, about 150 people in the room that day. And so we had very strong pitch opportunity there for them to tell us. Now, where we left off last time, Commissioner Cook, there were 3 NIAs that we were working with. So we identified 3 NIAs. One was Valley Park, one was Central Highland Park, and the other was Highcrest. And those 3 NIAs participated in a project called the Social Entrepreneur Project. And the goal of that social entrepreneurship project was to uncover social entrepreneurs. Now, all entrepreneurs are, dedicated to a specific business venture. Some of them are dedicated to, okay, if I start this initiative, how will it grow my community? And so the social entrepreneurship component was there. So Valley Park did what they call a full circle sustainable recycling project, where they took the hard to recycle pieces out of their community, and they would work to recycle those. So that has been a tremendous success. They want to grow that program, and they will grow it over the next year. Central Highland Park did the lawn care initiative that we were familiar with, and they expanded that. And then Highcrest, you're familiar with Highcrest. Now, if there was ever any time that we needed, they needed air, it was this time in the community. And so, they've had the for the last 2 years, they've had the air conditioner units that they sold or they provided for individuals in the community. And so they made a project out of the High Crest purchasing the units and providing those at a discount. So that's the end of my report. If I have any questions, I'm standing here to answer.
Thank you, Glenna.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, JEDO members. I wanted to give a quick update about Top City interns and showcase a little bit of how Forge is working to attract and retain young talent to Topeka and Shawnee County. So as a quick reminder, the Top City Interns program is a program designed for employers to better engage their interns while they're in town. And so this year was Top City Interns' best year in the program. We had 5 events in 7 weeks with 400 interns, which was the most in program history, with 40 participating employers. And this year we did see, with an intentional effort, we saw more integration between the Forge group, the Forge members, and the interns while they were here in town, which we felt was a good crossover. In addition, we are working to collect data from employers to see how many interns were offered positions, how many interns accepted positions, and also other questions designed to enhance the program for future years. Just a quick recap of some of the events. Like I said, we did 5 events in 7 weeks, and these events are all designed to showcase Topeka, build connections among interns and other young professionals in Topeka, and then also provide some personal and professional development events where they can get more comfortable entering the workforce. So as you can see here, we're at a lot of different places in Topeka and just trying to give them a feel of what it's like to live, work, and play here. And real quick, since I know we've gone long, I just wanted to showcase a few of these pictures of us at our events. And so you'll see us here at the kickoff event at the zoo, at Advisors Excel during our influential leaders panel, and then as well as some of our other events, Top Tracer Golf at Great Life North, the Pennant, and a few others. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we can jump into the next presenter.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner.
if somebody over the age of 40, such as Tony Emerson, wanted to go to the concert on the rooftop here that's coming up, are we allowed in?
All are welcome.
All right, Tony, we're in.
All right, we're in.
He's your plus one.
We hope to see you all there, actually. So thank you all.
Thank you, Rhett.
Hello.
Hi, Trina.
So in the quarterly report that we sent out after Q2, you saw that we did in fact win the child care grant, the Child Care Capacity Accelerator grant. So I'm just going to give a little bit of highlights on that. So the Child Care Capacity Accelerator grant, we received $2.7 million, a little over that, which will create 451 additional child care slots in Shawnee County. That will be covered by 9 unique projects, childcare expansion projects, plus the opening of 8 additional classrooms. So I'm excited to say that some of this work is already underway. We received the grant period actually began on July 1st. And since then, we have had one of our projects has opened the classroom that they were planning to open, which created 9 additional slots, and that was Countryside United Methodist Preschool. Also, Sent Prep Academy announced last month that they opened 2 of the 4 closed classrooms that they had there, which those were not included in their project request. So they have additional slots that they will be opening with the child care grant as well in the future. But it was exciting that they were able to get 10 new enrollments just in August. Then this morning, I received word from Patterson Family Infant and Toddler Center that they will be hosting their groundbreaking on September 30th from noon to 2. She is planning from the ground up new construction of a child care center for infant and toddlers. Melissa Patterson currently has a center already, where she has 30 children, I believe. And this new center will add an additional 31 infant and toddler slots in Southeast Topeka. So we're really excited about that, and I just got that this morning, so I will send that announcement out to you all tomorrow morning. We'll move to the next slide. We also were recipients of an Innovative Communities grant, and this was a special add-on to the Child Care Capacity Accelerator grant, and only 16 communities were awarded this. With this, we were awarded just under $250,000, where we will focus on workforce recruitment and retention, and then public-private funding partnerships. Most of the work for the Innovative Communities grant will be handled by a project consultant through Child Care Aware of Eastern Kansas. So they're keeping us apprised on what the work that's going on there. What will be included in that is one-on-one coaching for the center directors of all of the 9 projects and the 8 additional classrooms that will be open. Monthly peer learning sessions for all of those projects. We've also started exploring options to create a community fund so that we can get the business community and just individuals involved in adding funds to help issues like, we're going to call it gap funding for lack of better words. So if someone were to get a job, they were staying at home, they didn't have a job, and they get a job, there's still a 2 to 4 week time period where they don't have a paycheck yet, but they still need to send their children to childcare so that they can work their new job. So that will be one of the biggest ways that this community fund will be used. Also offering scholarships to families who just still can't afford childcare, despite other efforts that they've used with DCF funding or whatever else is out there. We will also be standing up a substitute teacher program. There is already a substitute teacher program in Abilene, Kansas. And she was also a recipient of the Innovative Communities grant and wants to expand her program in Shawnee County. We're the first community outside of Abilene that they're expanding this program into. So that's really exciting for when teachers have to call out sick. There'll be a pool of substitute teachers that can step in so those children can still be cared for throughout the day. Lots of other exciting things happening with the Innovative Communities grant, so I'll share more about that as it's happening.
Thank you, Trina.
Thank you. Oh, sure. Well, he asked that I clarify who we is. So we, as the Greater Topeka Partnership, are the recipients of the grant. We are in collaboration with Child Care Aware of Eastern Kansas. So we, the GTP, will be managing the funds and the overall reporting for the grant, so the oversight. But as I said earlier, a lot of the work will be done by Child Care Aware.
Mayor, Trina, I have a question.
Yes.
During the whole COVID thing, we lost like half of our licensed daycare providers.
Yes.
How much have we recovered at this point?
Oh, that's a good question.
hard
I would
to
have
say.
to get back to you on that.
Okay, I was just wondering if we're getting anywhere near close to the levels we were before, because I don't even think we were filling all the lanes before. And
We weren't. You're right.
So,
and I know we've made some headway. I used to have on the top of my head the number that were closed in Shawnee County. I think we've recovered close to half of those since then, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close out our quarterly report with a couple of last comments. A few of you in front of me and behind me have been involved in some interesting projects that are kind of collaboration projects. And so I just want to mention that one of those happens to be Westridge Mall. So now that it's out and announced, just wanted to let you all know that we obviously will be walking alongside AE as they look to redevelop the mall and are helping to do some research and provide demographics and some data to better understand what could be good use of that space and get creative. So we'll be an extension of their team and have been kind of working with them over the past 8 or 10 months to try and get to this point. And so excited, as I'm sure you all are also, about the future of that very catalytic piece of property on the west side of town. Also wanted to mention that in the past month or so, what we've been really heavily working on is our budget for 2024, as you all have also. I will be sending out an email either tonight or first thing in the morning with some dates that we have held from our team so that we can be sure that we can align with your calendars if you want to meet with us one-on-one. We have a couple of dates at the end of October, and if those dates don't work for you, we'll find another slot to plug you in and have some one-on-one conversations about potential revisions and enhancements and changes for 2024. That's all I have for quarterly report, and if there's anything that we can answer for you, happy to do so. Otherwise, we'll move on the agenda.
Thank you, Molly, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on now to item 4C.
C is the Astra Innovation Center update.
Molly or somebody else? Stephanie. Okay.
All right. In the last JEDO meeting in May, there was a request to have an update on Innovation Center at the September meeting. So I have asked Stan Wenzel with BioRealty to attend the meeting today and provide an update. So I'll turn it over to Stan.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening. As she mentioned, my name is Stan Wenzel. I'm one of the principals over at BioRealty. And I'm going to do a brief presentation. We'll try to keep it short. But first off, I did want to just thank the board as well as the Go Topeka board for just the forward-looking vision for this project. We think it's going to be very transformational for downtown. And we also want to thank you for all the efforts you've made to date to help support it and make it financially feasible. This is the quick agenda I'm going to cover. I'll try to go through it quickly, but I am open to any and all questions as we go. A brief history on the project. We were originally engaged as consultants. And we came in to do what we call a viability assessment. And the goal of that was to clarify the vision for this Astra Innovation Center project, to review the site and various building options in and around Topeka, to prepare some initial concept plans, including site plans, floor plans, budgets, and also do budgeting and scheduling, and then to really market test and find out what were the requirements to make this innovation center economically viable. Next slide. What we knew at the time was that we were in a challenging market. We're not in a major MSA. Had some of the economic challenges that you see in the smaller markets. We knew some of the existing buildings, these beautiful old downtown buildings, but somewhat expensive to rehabilitate. And that we also knew that a key element of our project was bringing in wet and dry lab space, which is what we do at BioRealty. And we knew this was an unproven lab market. We also knew going in that our economic viability would very, very likely require that we have to be 50% pre-leased and that we would have significant local government Go Topeka support. What we also thought we had going for us at the onset was some pretty good initial tenancy, pre-leasing, and that's key. We believed at the time we had a 20,000 square foot anchor tenant, a 5,000 to 10,000 square foot accelerator tenant. We, of course, had Go Topeka take some tenancy in the project. So we thought we had about 30 to 35,000 square feet of pre-leased tenancy, which is critical. And assuming a typical 50% pre-leasing target, we thought that would support about a 60 to 70,000 square foot project. When we completed that viability assessment, the conclusions we came up with, we basically had identified these great buildings downtown, the old Wolf's building on the corner of 7th, Kansas Avenue. We thought it was ideal for the Innovation Center with its being in the heart of downtown, right across from Evergy Plaza. We confirmed that pre-leasing requirement was the right target. We even specified lease length. The primary anchor tenant, we needed 7 years or more. The Go Topeka lease, we're looking for 5 years or more. It was BioRealty's responsibility then would be to assume we could take the project from that pre-leasing 50% to full stabilization, which we assumed we could get to 90%. We do still assume that eventually. And then we underwrote it to a kind of a market evaluated and tested return on cost based on our stabilized net operating income from the project. And what that really did, all that math, spit out for us what kind of economic gap and what kind of local support we needed for the project. So what happened next is we were selected as the developer. This board approved an incentive package for us. I believe it was in May of 2021. Thank you. And we were in a little bit of a push in terms of timing because we had gone ahead and put these downtown buildings under contract. We were now being pushed to close that or, close or walk away. At the same time, we had already experienced some construction cost escalation, which you've probably heard that in prior speakers tonight. But at the time of going into JEDO approval, our direct construction costs were estimated at $7.65 million, and our total project costs were $14.7, and that had already escalated about $2 million from our very first original numbers. We had also at that time that we had to close the buildings, we hadn't had time to really lock down the anchor tenant lease, the Go Topeka lease, the incentive agreement. And because of this now larger budget, we came up with the plan to finalize those key agreements, execute on some historic tax credits to bring some additional third-party support to the project to help fill that gap. And we entered into a short-term, what we call stub or stopgap lease to allow us to close on the building and finalize these key agreements. So you've heard us talk a little bit about the economic gap. Well, at the time of closing, we also were a little bit short of our 50% pre-leasing threshold. So we had a pre-leasing gap. One more. Go one more, please. Thank you. So the buildings, the three buildings at 629 through 635 Kansas Avenue, they total approximately 76,000 rentable square feet. So it's a little bit larger than the pre-lease, the square footage we thought our pre-lease commitments could support. So we had a small pre-leasing gap, but we were very confident that would get filled. Then, unfortunately, we had our anchor tenant decide that they did not want to, they wanted to withdraw. So all of a sudden, our pre-leasing gap got larger. And then we've had an anchor or accelerator tenant. We fully expect them to occupy, but they just weren't prepared to lease commit at that time. So we have slightly larger pre-leasing gap. Then from an economic perspective, as I mentioned, we had already had, at the time we made the go-forward decision, and this board approved it, we had already had costs run up a little bit. Economically, at a stabilized project, we underwrote could support about a $9 to $10 million project, and yet our project budget was $14.7. So between the historic tax credits and the incentive this board approved, we felt we had that portion of the gap filled. But unfortunately, as time marched on, because of our delay due to the pre-leasing, we continued to experience an unprecedented level of construction costs. So you've heard about that earlier. And here's a quick slide on what it meant to this project. Our very, very first estimate, even prior to JEDO board approval, was in November 2020. And you can see that both the direct construction cost number as well as the total project cost number. The difference between those being the total project includes the purchase of the buildings, all the architecture and engineering, all the TI allowances, and other items, soft cost items like that. Go back to that slide. And then you can see where it is as of our most recent estimate and the extraordinary level of increase that's occurred over the time period. And again, each of these estimates, when we go out to get them, we're going to two major general contractors in the area, giving them a similar scope and verifying that the numbers are coming in consistent. So to address this larger gap and to address this pre-leasing shortfall, in January, we realized we needed an alternative plan or a backup plan. And, of course, we have the JEDO and Go Topeka approved incentive package. We have the investment my team has made, both in buying the buildings as well as completing all due diligence and all the schematic design, or actually beyond schematic design. We were successful in obtaining all the historic tax credits. We got what we call Parts 1 and Parts 2 approvals for each of the three buildings. We also went out and my team was able to secure a Base 2.0 grant from the Department of Commerce here in Kansas. So we're bringing these other forms of third party to support the project. And because of the significant escalation you saw on the prior slide, our plan is we're going to bring in new market tax credits to the project, which we hope to get those awarded next month in October. So this talk on pre-leasing gaps and economic gap, what's essentially happened is we've realized without an anchor, it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get this project 50% pre-leased. These two are somewhat of a trade-off. So if we have lower pre-leasing, we need more economic support, and that's effectively what we're doing to get this project going. So going forward, next slide. As I just said, we've realized 50% is going to be extremely difficult without a major anchor. We know you guys and Topeka have been very valuable partners. We believe the current JEDO approved incentive package, despite these significant cost increases and other challenges we faced, we think we can make it work with what we have. Where we're going is, as I've mentioned, we're going to go the new market tax credit route. Now, we know this is not a panacea. We've done it before. We know how complex and how difficult and how costly and how timely it is, but we do understand the process. The new market tax credits get generally awarded through the community development entities in October of every year. So in June, we kind of made the decision that we were going to head down this direction, and then we think, between our experience doing this as well as the success we've had on the historic tax credit approvals and the base grant, we feel very confident in getting this final element done to see the project happen. So our current plan of attack is the new markets. We need to sign up one lab tenant, bring us to about 14.5% pre-leased. Of course, we'll need the Topeka lease and the incentive and the parking agreements, which are essentially in final form already. The Topeka lease, we actually have the existing stub lease with them, and we'll probably just amend that document. What this will do for us is this will give us a definitive construction start date without the 50% pre-leasing hurdle being met. And it'll allow us to exit the stub lease and enter into the project construction and ultimately stabilization. We think the key to getting this final domino to fall, these new market tax credits, is project readiness. And what I mean by that is these new market, I don't know if you're familiar with the process, but they're essentially awarded to these community development entities, and they're looking for projects that fit their mandate, fit their region, but more importantly are ready to begin. And so we have actually been working with, exposed the project to a number of CDEs. We have 6 that have identified strong interest in the project. We only need 2. And we're pretty confident because of our readiness efforts that we'll get an allocation in this fourth quarter. In terms of readiness, here's kind of what we're selling to the CDEs. We already acquire and own all the buildings and made all the equity, they're all funded out of equity contributions from Bio Realty. We've completed all our third-party due diligence. We've completed both Fed and state historic tax credit approvals, parts 1 and 2. We have our lender term sheets obtained with backups. We have purchase agreements for the tax credits obtained with backups. Next. Again, we've updated our projects in a format that complies with our project budget, in a format that complies with the new market tax credit requirements, and we have 2 estimates backing those numbers. We have an experienced new market tax credit consultant engaged, a new market tax credit legal and accounting teams interviewed, ready to engage, our base grant awarded, and we're even summarizing in quite detail the positive community impacts this project will bring to those, which is something those CDEs look at. What we have left to do are really these items, and all of these, but the one with a star next to it, are completely in our control. We got to get the internal agreements finalized and signed, which again, most of those are in final form right now. We have a lab tenant. We are in a letter of intent, final letter of intent negotiations with. We want to get them signed. And then from then, it's just a matter of finalizing our GMAX contract. And then we still have some remaining design effort to do, because under the new markets, we need complete working drawings at closing. So that's kind of the update of where we're at, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner.
Mr. Wenzel, thank you for being here tonight. I know this is long overdue for us to get this update on where this project stands. Topeka and JEDO work together for new market tax credits for the renovation of Washburn University's technical school in East Topeka, and that was a long process for us to go through. Are you anticipating, and is it your report tonight, that you're hoping to have within the next 60 days an announcement as to whether or not you're going to receive those new market tax credits?
We believe that, yes. Again, it's not in our control, but typically the federal government awards the new markets in October. We've gotten signals from the industry insiders that it looks like they're on track to do that in October. So we should have an idea by October whether or not, by the end of October, whether or not a CDE is interested issuing us term sheets. We already have, like I said, 6 identified that are interested. So we think we'll have a good indication. Now, as far as timing, though, as you know, these new markets are far from a panacea. I mean, they're difficult. It's why we didn't recommend it at the get-go, because it's a lot of brain damage. But it will take from that October, say, term sheet from a CDE until about the end of March before we have the transaction entirely documented, entirely papered, and are ready to close and then commence construction. So currently, we're estimating CDE award, initial term sheet, and hopefully in October, if it doesn't slip. And then based on that, we would start construction April 1st. And based on that, we should have completion approximately 12 months later.
So this is a project that's been going on since 2021, since when we started our work with BioRealty. Let's play what ifs.
Sure.
Since we've started this in 2021, our construction costs have gone up. We've had some people that have delayed their going into the project or pulled out of the project. We're now pursuing the new market tax credits. If those new market tax credits don't come through, are we going to be doing a reassessment as to whether or not this is a viable project, or we should pull out, or are we just going to reevaluate the scope?
Well, I think what our plan is, and first of all, right now, all our efforts are focused on that project readiness to see that we get those new markets, and we are confident we will. But if we don't, we view it as our options then will be to evaluate phasing the project or descoping the project or reducing scope. It's kind of a theme of the evening, apparently, but it's a market reality of where we're at. But we do see an avenue where it could potentially be descoped from the original concept or just phased. And we could do that without the new markets, potentially.
Now, one of the reasons why BioRealty was selected was your work within this field, working with startups and companies within this field. How does this project relate to, I say that one that you announced recently in, I believe, South Carolina or another state?
Yeah. Well, the project, it's in North Carolina that we're doing there. We're doing biomanufacturing shells, so big, large boxes that we're going to put biomanufacturing companies, that are manufacturing biopharmaceuticals. So it's quite a bit different than this project, although that type of concept might also work quite well in Topeka. We could see some of the companies that ultimately spin out of the Innovation Center, the long-term vision is they could go into something like a project like that. But they're just two different animals. The Innovation Center, it's going to be consist of numerous small multi-tenants. That project I just mentioned to you is primarily, it's not necessarily going to be, huge Fortune 500 companies. A lot of them will be biotechs, maybe even pre-revenue biotechs. But generally, they'll be taking those spaces, one tenant per building, and because they're doing all this good manufacturing practice, manufacturing, and there's a lot of issues with them maintaining FDA compliance, stuff like that. It doesn't come into what we're doing here.
A concern that I just have, and this is my parting comment, a concern that I've had as a board member is this is a project that has been going on for quite a while, and so people that were committed have moved on. Some people weren't able to commit because circumstances changed. And if we are continuing to chase that 50% threshold before the project can begin, if we never get there, are we spinning our wheels when is our time to reassess? And that's just a concern that I have.
Yeah, I understand the path that we decided, we made that same conclusion you just talked about. We came to that, we talked about that in January. And that's why this path forward is not relying on the pre-leasing. That we want to get the one lab tenant in. That one lab tenant will bring us to just about 14.5% pre-leased. We're planning to go on that basis because of exactly what you said. Without an anchor in hand coming into it, it's going to be too difficult to hit that pre-leasing hurdle. So we're essentially doing away with it and reducing it to a 15% pre-lease hurdle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good, great questions.
Comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, just given the status of where things stand, if we could have maybe Stephanie come back to us in December, because by December we should know where we stand with those new market tax credits. I'm having Stephanie come back and have that as a item for our agenda. I would appreciate that because this is a very important piece of our downtown development. It's part of our initiatives at Astra, and I would love to hear back, and hopefully, knock on wood, we've got some great news coming back in December.
Amen.
I'd be happy to report on that at December, and obviously if word comes in sooner than that, then I will be sharing that to everyone.
I'd be happy with an email.
Yeah. I'll make sure you know as soon as I do.
Good suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. I think there's one person. Or is there anybody?
Henry McClure and Lazone Grace. I've got two.
Okay. Mr. McClure, he left already. Okay. Okay. Mr. Grace.
Good evening, everyone, members of the Joint Economic Development Organization, JEDO. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I spoke with the City Council before I left out of town, but since you're all here together, and this here has something to deal that will impact Shawnee County, I just wanted to come and share and give sort of a follow-up from my visit to the Microsoft headquarters. As I had mentioned at the city, our organization had been chosen as one of their fellows, what's called a TechSpark, Microsoft TechSpark Fellows Program. And that's a 9-month program to whereas one organization is chosen out of each state, so now there's 50 of us, and we were bought and convened at the Microsoft headquarters to talk about the program, the tools, the resources, and the support that we're going to get from this corporation. It is not just an opportunity for our organization, but it is, there's only one TechSpark partner per state, so IBSA is it for Kansas, and because I'm here, I'm focusing on this effort here in Topeka. One of the things that they were instructing with us is where Microsoft is going with technology, especially under the generative AI portion of it, and the tools that they will be rolling out here earlier next year that our organizations will have access to in an effort for us to learn and then teach that in the communities. You probably have heard, and will hear again, that different governors and states and local governments are starting to hold conversations about AI and the workforce, and what does that mean for the future workforce? What jobs are at risk to be lost? Where opportunities are going to be? Microsoft, with their AI for Good platform through TechSpark, is really focusing on nonprofits who are going to be helping the small businesses, small grassroots organizations, increase the number of community science courses in a community, and a couple of other things. Many of all the areas that out of the 5 areas you pick one focus, we already have done numerous of them, but we can't do all of them. So we would probably be focusing more our efforts on the workforce development programs formed to support individual job seekers through digital upskilling, which is really when they launch what's called Copilot for Microsoft 365. And they have programs with certifications on LinkedIn. Microsoft owns LinkedIn. that they will be linking to, whereas from our organization's perspective, we have always been doing office clerical training programs for those 55 and older in certain programs, even for the TANF and the job search programs themselves. We will be integrating, we have already been doing Microsoft Office training, now integrating Office 365 with Copilot, which is a generative AI, is going to be a plus, because as the industry start thinking about what are the new skills of the future that their entry-level office clerical and others are going to need, then some people locally will have an upper hand on what is that going to be. Next month, each of us are provided one Microsoft coach. My coach is Erica Smith. She is actually based out of Atlanta. They will come to the location of where the fellows are. So next month, Miss Erica Smith and probably maybe another Microsoft executive from Microsoft Philanthropies will be coming here. And our job is to convene the leaders in your city. You know, this is Microsoft, a major corporation, who's going to be coming and looking in Kansas on what it is that they can do. It's not just a one and done 9 months. They're looking to do projects that's going to make a long-lasting impact. And there are other things within AI that deals with education, hospital, healthcare institutions, schools. And so when they come here, I want to be able to introduce these other bigger figures in the community here to ask questions, chat, discuss, see where we can take this opportunity. I would like to have a few more minutes if possible.
How many minutes do you need, Lizelle?
3 minutes, but I'll probably go less.
Okay. Motion seconded. All in favor? Aye. Proceed.
Thank you. So I asked Miss Washington to help facilitate that TechSpark manager to come in. Of course, she graciously said yes, and I would not have anybody other than her to help bring these people forward. More information will come out on, they will be here for 2 days, show them the city, sit down and meet, talk about the incentives that you would like to see. This is a good opportunity that not only is an opportunity for the immediate looking to the future, but it builds up on top of the other advocacy have been doing on this digital divide space. We have made successive gains in that area with the coalitions, with the computers, and with the other things that we are doing. I did create a list of who I believe that convening participants should be, to get it on your radar so that you would know. This is something that if we do well, it's not just about Topeka, but if there's something we can do right, it's something that can be infiltrated or filtrate across the state. In other parts outside of Shawnee County, we will also be doing this project, part of the project in Kansas City, Kansas, because of our footprint of what we have been doing there. Ms. Smith will be coming really to Topeka to speak with the stakeholders. Her job pretty much was really to, she says, to mobilize and build community support for your selected project where applicable, including sourcing matching funds, pursuing state or federal funding opportunities, leveraging in-kind support, and garnering buy-in from community partners. That's what she's going to come to do. Maybe she'll be successful like in other places. Titletown Tech was one of the projects that it ended up being a $95 million investment drawn in from the Microsoft brand and the resources. There will be other people if we get the good facility for Zoom, because I want you to realize these Microsoft executives of who I'm working with and what they are offering and what they're bringing to the table. So I left one sheet there that really shows a history of the funds that have come in since we started this digital divide conversation, from the first JEDO, $250,000, up until the recent ARP funds that's helping our project and going to be helping 3 other locations with computer internet labs in the communities, that we can bring this type of training to these facilities in the community. And then on the last sheet, for those who don't know, it's not like I've been coming to this podium just now. I've been coming here for a bit of time. And there's on the charts to show what I consider completed assignments and those that's unfinished. And this is part of the unfinished in the Bridging the Digital Divide area here. So I just want to put this on the radar and invite everybody to be on the lookout for this opportunity. And no one had mentioned, but we do have a event coming up with the city on learning how to do business with the city that you can probably pass around to give everyone with collaboration with Glenda and the city of Topeka. Maybe I'll take one of these business cards. I might need a ride or something. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, Lizanne. Okay. No. Here, let me get this hammer and hit you with it. Okay. Looking at our agenda, there is a reminder here that our next quarterly meeting will be scheduled December the 13th. So, unless there is further business to come before this board, the meeting is adjourned.